Hello and welcome to a new Max Spoilers from MinnMax. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Ross, the Star Wars Guy Fund.
Hey, I'm here for the children.
Also, I guess just Ross, Disney Man Fund. I don't know how it fits here.
We can keep it Star Wars.
Okay, and Brian Vore, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
Welcome, welcome. We're here to spoil everything about WandaVision, but not all of WandaVision, because at this point, we have only seen the first 2 episodes. So if you have not seen the first 2 episodes, you should stop watching this. You should stop listening to this. But by the way, if you are watching this and you want to listen to it, you can support us at Patreon at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's and unlock the podcast version of this, podcast version of our Game Club discussions called The Deepest Dive, early access to the MinnMax show. You can submit questions for the podcast, all of our other shows. There are a lot of benefits, so please check that out and help support Indie Games Media. We appreciate it. WandaVision, a show that I've been looking forward to for a while. I feel like it's been building for a while now, and especially with this Marvel drought of all of 2020 having no Marvel content, like I was growing more and more excited about it. And then I watched it. I don't know where you guys are at. We have not talked about it at all. This is, with a qualifier, this is one of my favorite Marvel things ever. But I'm worried that I'm reading too much into it and I'm assigning too much intelligence maybe to it. I'm worried about where it'll go, but as of right now, I could not be more into this show. What did you guys think about it, Ross?
It's so different, and I wonder if it would play even better if we still were in that Marvel zone where we get like 2-3 movies a year. I got super used to that, and so also very excited for this. But yes, it's so weird going into it. I mean, I think we all knew that it had this weird like sitcom vibe and all that, but I had no idea how hard it was going to lean into that.
Yes.
It was like 98% just straight sitcom and 2% mystery. So I thought it was crazy, and I got pretty into it too.
Yeah, Brian, what'd you think?
Yeah, it made me wonder the whole time. I was like, I know when we were kids, a lot of these reruns for like Bewitched and I Love Lucy were on, like Nick at Night or, some other classic channels. But I wonder, like, the younger people of today, did they even have any exposure to the stuff that this is referencing? But yeah, I agree with you guys. I do love what they're doing here and how hard they're leaning into, like, oh God, we have to make the boss's dinner perfect, and like the types of troubles that are in a sitcom like this, like old style.
And it's amazing on a meta level as well, if you really want to read into it, to have like this big Marvel debut on Disney Plus, the future of television, these streaming platforms, and to have it be this love letter to shows from the 50s and 60s. But the part on top of that just kills me is, maybe I was just a sucker and in a good mood this morning or something, but like, I think the jokes are genuinely funny. Like, I think it holds up as like a sitcom. I was laughing out loud several times. It wasn't just like that, okay, 50s parody stuff, we got it. But I think there's some really funny stuff in here, and it works. In a weird way, it like splits that divide, which should be the greatest possible audience Marvel could ever hope for. It splits that divide between like Marvel and Fuller House. Like people are nostalgic for that 3-camera sitcom stuff. And the fact that it's blending those two so successfully, I think it means that everybody on planet Earth is going to watch and enjoy this show.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is because it's been so long since I've seen a sitcom like this. I mean, it really brought me back to like staying at my grandparents, and like the 2 TV options were Nick at Night, or like beach volleyball on ESPN or something. and like I was like, I guess I'll go with the Donna Reed show. But I really got into it too. I thought it was pretty funny, and a lot of that comes down to Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany were like super good in this. Like,
unbelievable.
Never had a chance to have this much personality in any of the Marvel movies that she's been in, I don't think.
No, it's wild.
Yeah.
I really think it's like, well, Marvel's finally getting their money out of these amazing actors, because it is just the ham opportunity of the century for acting. You can feel them being so excited, and they just nail it. And again, not in like a tongue-in-cheek way, just sincere as hell. They feel like they would have fit in perfectly on a show from the early 60s.
Oh, totally. And I don't know if you guys, but I couldn't stop thinking about like the fact that like Paul Bettany cast way back in 2008 for Iron Man, like, hey, we need you to do this kind of computer voice. And just to tell him, like, by the way, like, you know, over a decade later, you will be on you'll be a robot on a sitcom show, you know, like.
And it's going to be a parody of Bewitched. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking of the Elizabeth Olsen angle because before I watched this, Marvel on Disney Plus, they had kind of like a basically character recap. I don't know if you all saw that. I think it's called Marvel.
The Legends thing, right?
Where it just kind of walks through their history and their highlights. And it was amazing just going through Scarlet Witches and being like, oh man, her accent is so bizarre, how much it's just been depleting throughout the series, and just seeing where she started and even seeing her now, it's just night and day. And I'm so glad that they're finally doing something so wild with this. But I want to know, they've been pretty cagey with interviews so far. I'm hoping that Jack Schaefer, who's the showrunner here, does more interviews about how this show came about, because it does just seem like that layup of, okay, we need a TV show about Scarlet Witch, Bewitched. Let's just put her in Bewitched. I mean, it basically is the entire pitch for the show, but it works so damn well. It's amazing.
Yeah, so it's clear that second episode was definitely Bewitched and the animated opening, which was fabulous, really made that clear. The first episode, was that a Donna Reed thing, or is there another show that it was more heavily based on?
It kind of felt a little Dick Van Dyke, I suppose, of like, you know, following Vision to his workplace, which, see, this is where it gets into the level of, God, am I reading too far into this? Because what I am so into this show for is like I'm sorry for pretending to sound literary, but like the Kafka-esque nature of it, just when things are just slightly off and they can't figure out why. And the Vision at his job is a perfect example of that, where he's at the job and he's trying to figure out what this job is. It's like the perfect Kafka nightmare about like, I'm working on this thing, I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know if that's just jokes about, I don't know what level that joke is that they're going for. I don't know if it's about, this is a weird job, something computers, it's not important, versus I'm in some weird hellscape that I can't get out of and I can't tell what's actually going on. And I'm just starting to realize that my reality doesn't exist the way I think it does because things don't add up.
Yeah, a lot of the hard basic details are like, oh yeah, we're married, right? And like, when was that? And why don't we have rings?
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was totally what you're describing there, Ben. In that scene, I thought that's what was going to be happening with the date on the calendar too. But I think that part was just a total sitcom, you know, setup for a comedy.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think just on the comedy level, I mean, that moment really made me laugh too when he's talking to the boss, and the boss is Cy Abelman from Serious Man for Little Coen Brothers in there. But it really made me laugh when he's walking through everything that went wrong with the last dinner party he went to, with like that other guy with the weird long face. I don't know who that actor is, but he's amazing. With
that mustache guy, ridiculous.
Yeah, where they're talking about all the things he got wrong, and he only had a 4-piece band, and he wore a turtleneck, and the boss hated his beatnik attitude, and all that stuff was hilarious.
God, and I love how in that second intro, they have like cartoon versions of all the people in the neighborhood too.
Yes. Yeah. And they're all singing WandaVision.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That dinner scene as well, just a delight. And it brought it up another level. It was like, oh, now we have Kitty from that 70s show in this sitcom again. And now she is part of the MCU, of course. It's just a delight.
Yeah. If you're going to cast anybody for that role, cast her because she's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And like you're saying, when it goes wrong and the guy starts choking,
oh my God,
and then she's repeating it, it's so like the sitcom stuff is so normal for most of the time. When that stuff starts happening, it really makes it a lot creepier. And in that second episode too, where the beekeeper starts climbing out of the manhole cover, it was just like, it's not like we're watching a horror movie here, but I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy. What's going on?
I know. And you say that it's the 2% odd. I was rooting this entire time with like, be more subtle. Even when the second episode starts and they have like the red helicopter in the bushes, like, not yet. I love this stuff, but just don't get there yet. Like, let it be that weird, unnerving thing, like that dinner scene in that first episode. Genuinely, one of my favorite things I've ever seen from Marvel. I am just such a sucker for watching this world crumble, which is a weird sentence, but I guess it's true. It feels a little bit like, this is a terrible analogy, but a little bit of like that Sex House vibe where just like things are so much darker than you realize. Or then as it went on, it's like, it's also clicking into place for why I'm enjoying this so much. And it's because I love Pleasantville, the movie from 2004 or whatever. And it's like, oh, it's just kind of bewitched Marvel Pleasantville, but I love seeing a world melt down in some twisted mental way.
Yeah. So how long into this season? It looks like it's a 9-episode season, and I don't know if that's going to be the entire series or if they're going to do more after that. But how many of these episodes do you think are going to have this format where we're in a specific type of sitcom with some, mystery elements in it? Like, I guess what I'm asking, how many times does that happen before it totally breaks out of that and it's it's a different type of show?
God, I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
Well, what's interesting is we've already gotten obviously we've seen the little pops of color here and there that seem to show the cracks in the world. And then we've already had the full color moment at the end of episode 2. I don't know. I think maybe like 75% of the way through, or 2/3 is the time when you're just like, we're in some kind of computer land and people are after us and we have to, I feel like you can't just completely abandon the core concept that soon into the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the now that we're in color, what's the 70s sitcom going to be?
I think it's going to be like, God, did Bewitched eventually transition to color? I think it did. And so I think it's still going to be kind of like that early 70s sitcom vibe, I would imagine. But yeah, I wonder if it's going to be 2 episodes per era. Because even between the first and second one, it felt like they jumped forward a bit. Even just like the subtle things of them moving the bed together and them talking about alcohol a little bit more. So it seems like they were already progressing the television history clock. This is why this show freaking rules. It's a Marvel series about television history. But yeah, I don't know. Would they spend 2 in the 70s, 2 in the 80s, and then will it get more bizarre if they go into like 90s TV and then just do the complete Full House version, which becomes more bizarre because Elizabeth Olsen grew up with her sisters being so connected to Full House? Oh my God, it's just amazing on so many levels.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I never even thought about that. But this really could lead to just like, by the end, is it like an Arrested Development type of show?
Oh my God.
Yes, I want that so bad.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Or what would it be? Yeah, what is like the 2000s TV? Like 2.5
Big
Men?
Bang Theory? Or
Big Bang Theory, yeah, if you're right. Or they just are sitting in a bar or something. I guess that's more Cheers. That's confusing. Yeah, who the hell knows? That's one of those things that I'm a little bit worried about is I'm building up my own headcanon, and it's probably one of the reasons I'm loving this show so much. But I wanted it to be what I thought it was from the first trailer, which is, Wanda just creating her own reality out of her own volition and just trying to recreate this life with Vision any way she can because her brain is melting down. But like what worries me is both episodes have ended with, a voice being like, who brought you here? Who's doing this to you, Wanda? It's like, I don't want some secret Marvel organization has kidnapped Wanda and is running tests on her. Like, I love the weird internal trauma world creation that's going on here. And so I'm worried about the answers to these questions.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be created by her too, because that has so much precedent in the comics. It seems like Wanda's always suffering a traumatic event and creating an alternate reality or whatever. So I was kind of surprised to see that it appears to be something that's being done to her rather than created by her.
Yeah, and there was some insignia.
What I found is that it seems like whenever the world starts to crack, like at the choking at the dinner party, or when the glass breaks and Dottie's hand gets all bloody, it seems like a record skip in that something is done to kind of correct it, and the people around them are just like, okay, everything's fine, we're not messing things up. It seems like initially Wanda is kind of confused and also trapped by this, but when the beekeeper came out, she had the power to say no and then rewind to that moment where it showed that, she was pregnant and stuff. So I feel like in some ways she's complicit in whatever's happening here.
That's a good point.
And as a way to kind of either be with Vision more or perhaps kind of revive him. What's also strange is that in this show, he has the Mind Stone on his forehead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as you know, last time we saw him, it was initially destroyed by Wanda, and then Thanos rewound time and broke it or pulled it out himself and killed Vision.
Right.
So you got to wonder if they just have his weird android body sitting in a lab somewhere without the minds. I don't know.
Yeah, the push and pull of who's in control is interesting. Where I don't know if I quite read it as much as kind of that Truman Show-esque nature of everybody's trying to keep the facade up for her. But like, yeah, it does imply that she's in control with that rewinding when she said no and saw the beekeeper. And so maybe it's that mix of she's in some stasis that's resulted from some other people putting her in that, but she's still in control of that world. But I even love like little moments where in the second episode when the neighbor, who's very funny, comes up and sees her, she's like, hey, there's the star of the show. And Wanda's like, what? She's like, I'm talking about my rabbit. Like those little like weird beats of like, you know, if it is this weird dream world that she's creating, then it's that fun manifestation of, oh, are they saying that because Wanda is aware that this is a show and that she is the star of it, so therefore she put that dialogue in the other people's mouths to project at her? This is the best. It's just the best show.
Or do some of these characters also know that they are in something that's wrong? And if so, which ones? I think Geraldine, who was in that second episode and who ended up in the magic cabinet or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that she, when she introduced herself as Geraldine, it seemed like she was coming up with that on the spot. So she seems like there's more going on with her, but there were plenty of characters also in the neighborhood that just seem like they totally exist within that reality.
Well, you know, the weird thing about Geraldine, and I'm hazy on this, but she is Monica Rambeau apparently from Captain Marvel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the little kid.
That's what the rumor is, yeah.
From Captain Marvel.
Gotcha.
And so how that would connect to this, I'm still trying to piece together.
Yeah, I've been trying to stay away from that stuff, so I had no idea. But yeah, I totally believe that. And she would be, she was a kid in the 80s then in Captain Marvel. So
well, 90s, yeah. So I guess that works out. Just on that timeline front, I was trying to think about, why is Wanda doing this on multiple levels? But also it's like, is it implied that just growing up in Sokovia, she watched a lot of classic TV? Are they going to make that connection, or is it just going to be implied that like, I don't know, she was watching a bunch of old shows, don't worry too much about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Interestingly, so each of the episodes had an ad. The first one was the Stark Industries toaster, and the second one was a Strucker watch.
Yeah. And
Strucker, I believe, was the guy that was experimenting on her and her brother in Avengers 2.
Yeah, and I like that on that watch, they have the Hydra logo on there. It's like, who's going to want to wear that watch? It's a sweet Hydra logo strutting around.
Yeah, the most secretive organization ever.
But I think that's a good reminder that, you know, she's creating these ads, if it's that tailor-made to her personal history. And then even Stark, she had the history with Stark as well. So for them to produce that toaster in the first episode would make some sense if she was, I don't know.
Yeah, the tagline of the ads is something about like, forget your past and focus on the future. And both of these ads seem to focus on the past. If you'll recall their origin with her and her brother Pietro, they were stuck after their parents were killed. There was like a Stark bomb beeping for like days.
Yep.
And they were stuck in the rubble thinking like, let's not move, it's going to go off. So it seems to be a reference to that, the toaster. And then of course the Strucker is it Baron Wolfgang von Strucker?
There it is.
The guy that kind of helped develop her powers.
Yeah.
And,
I liked in that first commercial.
The Avengers.
Yeah, and that first commercial too is so subtle, but on the toaster is like the first red light, like the first bit of color popping through was in that first ad.
Yeah.
I don't know how that'd be connected.
When you make something in black and white nowadays, it's like the whole purpose is like, okay, how are we going to incorporate a red color into the show, you know?
And it has to be red. It has to be the most striking thing. It goes back to Schindler's List, you know, it's like, well, I got to go with the thing that's going to pop the most.
Yeah. So was the helicopter, the toy helicopter was that a reference to something? I couldn't think of anything, or what do we think it represents?
There was text on there, but it flew by so fast and I'm not enough of a Marvel historian to piece it together, but I'm sure the Reddit is already completely on it trying to piece together what's going on.
One of the most obvious things I think is that it's kind of like an Iron Man yellow and red, which is weird, but it also has you guys have probably noticed the sword logo with like a circle around it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't catch that.
That was, I think, on the notebook of the lady
or
the person at the end of episode 1, and it was on that helicopter. Now, I'm not a huge comics expert, but I tried to get into some internet research before we hopped on this call.
Yeah.
And apparently Sword is kind of the extraterrestrial counterpart to S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
Yep.
And then there was apparently a poster that kind of revealed what this acronym for SWORD stands for. It's the Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. So it seems like they're kind of monitoring superheroes.
And I wonder,
maybe part of the Sokovia Accord stuff from the earlier movies.
Or it ties into the intergalactic element, and that's why Monica Rambeau would be there from Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Sentient weapon makes me think of Vision, since he's not a human being.
I love that everybody at work just calls him Vision. Like, it reminded me of how it was the sweatiest thing in the world, Age of Ultron, for trying to come up with why he's called Vision. I think Thor's like, I had a vision, and then, the vision for the future. But I love that it's just carried forward to his boss, not questioning it in any way. But that's just the fun reality of this show, is just, well, of course his name is Vision. Moving right along. Again, this is me reading too much into it, but I also loved, on a weird level, hopefully what they were going for with that weird scene with the magic show, which was just a lot of fun in general, with him doing all these wacky things and then Wanda trying to hide it. And like when she makes that piano, a 2D piano, and the guy's like, that was my grandmother's piano. Like everybody just realizes like, this is so messed up. Or like when the hat goes through him and then like, how are they going to do that? And then she just pulls the curtain open. It's like 3 mirrors. Someone's like, is that how mirrors work? Yeah. But like that idea of course, Vision swallows gum. So now he's breaking down, but I don't know. This is, again, probably me reading too much into it, but him then acting, and maybe this is a choice from Paul Bettany, but the way he acts that he's breaking down his vision is to basically be drunk. And like, that was weirdly disturbing to watch. Just like, oh, now it's just a weird, dark story about alcoholism. If you want to just read what's happening on the screen, and like Wanda trying to maintain with this terrible alcoholic husband who's embarrassing her, probably pissing his pants. And then like, this is again, probably me reading too much into it, but I love that like the laughter did not stop. There was just as much laughter as there was in the first episode, like during that sequence. And that's when I started to get like disconnected of like, oh, I hope that's where this show is going, is like that weird tension of things getting darker, but the laughter maintains on a weird level. I think that's too much. I think realistically it's just Paul Bettany trying to have some way to play Vision breaking down. And I guess let's go for drunk. But it was, I don't know. I don't have a lot of alcoholism in my family, but still, it just like, that scene really weirded me out in an interesting way.
Yeah, I think it was, like you said, I think that was Paul Bettany's like, what can I do to be wacky and sitcom-y,
right,
to represent the big red messing him up inside, which interesting that Big Red was the choice, with so red being the operative color in the scenes. But a nice little detail there. Yeah, it was definitely, I felt the same way with the reality, or the fake reality of the sitcom breaking down at that point again.
Yeah, I guess that's the obvious thing we didn't acknowledge with Red coming through. It was like, well, Wanda, she's red, her powers are all red. That's her defining thing.
Yeah, she is the Scarlet Witch.
Oh, certain Scarlet. Which, by the way, this is maybe too nerdy. Have people called her the Scarlet Witch at any point? I'm always confused about who's been called what in the MCU.
I don't think they have. I don't think that she has been called the Scarlet Witch on screen. Has she? Brian, do you know?
I don't think so.
I can't think of where it would be.
Everyone kind of gets a fun, cool superhero name, and they somehow have not done it. But I wonder if it's part of those weird, like, Fox, rules where is it like mutants can't exist in the Marvel world, only in the Fox world? And
technically, who knows? People can correct us in the comments, I'm sure.
Matter as much.
Yeah, it's still confusing. Go ahead, Ross.
I was just going to say, speaking of comic references, I have to say that when, at the end of the second episode, when the beekeeper came up, my mind immediately went to Swarm, the Nazi bee supervillain. And I don't think it's going to be him, but Swarm is just so ridiculous that I was just like, could it be?
Yeah, I only know Swarm from Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark and his appearance on the David Letterman show, which is the best piece of TV history outside of WandaVision is the Turn Off the Dark performance on David Letterman. But
really, I didn't know that happened.
Oh my God. Yeah. So they have the Green Goblin go and sing a song on Letterman, and they invade the audience, and it's all the weirdos in the world are here right now in New York City. And it's the dumbest sequence. You just have to see David Letterman thinking it's cool, like, oh, okay. And then he walks out at the end of the performance like he always does at the end of a musical act, and he's standing amongst the Sinister Six, and David Letterman goes, "This looks like a party at my mom's house." That's his big joke about the Sinister Six. It's the best. Anyways.
Oh, I always wanted to see that.
So the pregnancy, what do y'all make of that? And when she rewound, she was still pregnant, yes? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to
rewound it back to that point? Like, I want to get back to here. And there was like that kids reference in that first episode too, where Kitty asked about it, and it was kind of a weird moment for them. So yeah, as we know from the comics, like Wanda's kids, it's too complicated for me to remember the details of, and too weird as are many Wanda storylines. But she had or was pregnant with twins, and then somehow those went away, but then they came back as like teens to be in the Young Avengers. So,
ooh.
Yes.
Okay, if you were a gambling man, and I think you are, do you bet that somehow this show will result in kids and they will be a big part of the MCU moving forward?
Oh, sure. Let's say why not? I'm not ruling anything out. Yeah, I mean, with Ms. Marvel coming in, why don't you do a Young Avengers movie eventually?
Right. I love it's going to be the most complicated backstory for a character. It's like, where did you come from? I was born in the late 50s on a TV show from Vision who was dead. Yeah, it's going to be perfect. Other little detail I loved is the fact that like the crowd doesn't react to color. Just like that little fun disconnect of every time there's a splash of color, or even like the big like color reveal at the end of episode 2, you think the crowd would be like, whoa, but it's just radio silence. Like they are not on board for this new version, or they can't detect it on whatever layer you think that narrative's happening on, which I'm curious to see how that'll manifest going forward. And like, what other clues can they have that the world's crumbling once it's already in color? Is it just going to be more stuff like the Beekeeper?
Maybe things will be in black and white.
Why not?
Oh, yeah.
All right. If you had to guess about the Beekeeper, does anybody have a theory for non-swarm related theory of what the hell's going on there?
He had the icon of sword on his gear, right? On his back.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Suit? I think he did. So somebody, so like, implies that it's a behind the scenes thing. Somebody's that's making this world a reality, maybe, unless it's the person that's talking to Wanda that she can hear through the radio.
Why is he swarmed by bees?
Do you guys? I saw online someone like said that they knew who that voice was. If you guys want to know.
Oh, actually, I don't want to know. I'd like to stay relatively in the dark on this one, I think.
Okay,
but
right.
I'm going to look at your eyebrows. Raise or lower them based on how interesting that voice is.
I'm just going to keep them where they are.
Okay, they are about in the middle.
Medium interesting. It's not like Tony Stark or anything, but
right.
It's not like you would have to go through all the movies and be like, oh, maybe it's that guy. But I don't know how these people figure these things out, but there's a lot of crazy Easter eggs.
Oh, perfect.
I'll tell you one more, but that's not involving the voice.
Yeah.
But you know how there was credits at the end of the first episode, like
in
world,
right?
Black and white credits. People think those maybe are like a listing of the sword agents that are putting this on.
Oh.
One of them, let me see. I have so many weird notes here. One of them is Abe Brown, who you may remember is a classmate of Peter Parker in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Of course I don't remember that. That's
and I didn't remember it either. But he was one of the people that survived the snap, graduated high school.
Oh.
So it's possibly he somehow is recruited as a sword agent now.
So of course
he was in that gifted class.
That's
That's
true.
right.
So everything's coming back to Abe Brown. That's the answer to all of WandaVision's mysteries. I can't wait to keep watching the show. I'm so curious to see how other people react to it. Like, you know, my girlfriend, I don't think has seen any Marvel stuff ever. And I just
Really?
I don't think so. And it's like, I want to just sit down and watch this again with her and just see like what that reaction's like. Like if I watch this with my parents, would they be into it? I'm so fascinated by the appeal of this show on such a wide level.
It seems like the perfect jumping on point. So just bring her in right here.
I mean, that ties into, I hope, I know this is the opposite of so many fans' wishes, but I almost hope that it's not very relevant to the MCU. I love it just being this weird, freaky offshoot. If it ties into, you know, the building up of the next Avengers or something like that. Like I want it to be just a weird side story and not get too Mandalorian season 2-ified, if you know what I mean. In a good way.
Well, I don't know. Marvel is just too good at tying absolutely everything to everything.
Yeah.
There's rumors that it's tied to the new Doctor Strange coming out.
Right.
Yeah, I think we know Elizabeth Olsen is going to be in that, right?
Yeah, she's been cast, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so curious about that with the Sam Raimi directing. Yeah, and I don't know. There's a lot of mysteries, a lot of fun things. What is the next Marvel thing other than this? Is it Black Widow, which is from the same writer actually as the show?
I don't know when Black Widow is finally going to be happening now, but Falcon and Winter Soldier is the next Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to pick up a week or two after this runs its course.
Really?
So in March, I think, is when that is when that's happening. So,
Okay.
And that was originally going to be the first Disney Plus show, but they kind of swapped the order of that in WandaVision due to COVID.
And Black Widow was, you know, obviously supposed to be the previous summer too. So that was, it's interesting if they had to tweak anything now that the order has swapped. Like you have to wonder, it's like, well, let's pull out this reference here and move it over there, you know, like.
Especially since it's, the same writer.
Look back on that. But Falcon and Winter Soldier there's a 2-week break and then that starts up, I believe, March 19th. Black Widow is May 7th. Then you go into Loki, which is in May. So that's going to overlap a little bit with Black Widow.
Jesus.
Did you guys catch that Owen Wilson is going to be in that Loki show?
Yeah, I saw. I was about to say, I cannot wait for an Owen Wilson and Loki team up.
And it feels like True Detective from that trailer. It's so surreal.
Yeah.
Plus Loki is like DB Cooper.
Of course. Yeah. Look, I'm all for the weirdness. This is fantastic. I loved seeing Marvel swing for the fences and just get absolutely bonkers with TV. It's so much more interesting.
It definitely seems like Phase 4 is going to be like the most out there. Looking at the stuff they've announced, the most familiar characters are like maybe like Spider-Man 3, Hawkeye, obviously Thor, but like there's a lot of like different stuff, like the What If series with Jeffrey Wright, and in July the Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
That's this year? Shang-Chi is this year? Jesus. All right. It's going to be a weird year, just how they're releasing this stuff, what the stuff contains. Yeah, and like I saw there was that tidbit where Kevin Feige in some interview was talking about Secret Invasion and talking about like, don't expect it to be like a huge cast of characters. Like I know the storyline of the comics is huge and it's like an Endgame or Infinity War level crossover, but he's like, it's more just going to be a mystery in space, right? With them trying to figure out who's actually Skrulls going on here.
Yeah, that's the one that is Nick Fury and Ben Mendelsohn's Skrull guy from Captain Marvel, right?
Right. Yeah. So a lot of mysteries, but I could not be more excited. I think it's a really cool note for Marvel to kick off their entire TV adventure with. I love the direction so far, and I'm hoping that they stick the landing and that it stays as weird as humanly possible. Anything else we haven't covered yet?
Well, there's one more Easter egg I think it's worth bringing up.
Sure.
I don't think you'll find it to be too spoilery, but people have noticed the wine that Wanda pours in the dinner scene. I'm going to butcher this because it's French. Maison du Mépris,
That was perfect.
which translates to House of Contempt, Scorn, Misery, something in that zone. People think that is a reference to the House of M, which, Ross, I think you were kind of bringing up, where with kind of just some words, Wanda is able to kind of bend reality. So it seems kind of like the most direct reference to that kind of storyline.
Yeah, that has to just be a subtle nod, though, right? I mean, do we think that it's going to go as big as House of M, where what she's going to create the mutants? Is that the grand theory?
Yeah, it's like hard to tell what's a little Easter egg sometimes and what is like a hint at the true reality of the situation in a show like this. Because in that in the ad where they're in the grocery store, there's like Bova milk, and I believe Bova was like a cow woman, like half cow, half woman, who maybe helped raise Wanda in the comics. I'm not totally clear on that. But, connected in some way to Wanda. I believe it's a magical cow woman as well. Just for posterity.
I cannot wait to read these comments on the YouTube version of this, because I'm sure there's a million things that we've missed. So we'd love to hear your theories, what you think about WandaVision so far, and especially what people not into the MCU think of WandaVision. That is my main cup of tea and point of curiosity here. But cool. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see. Anything you want to plug? I feel like last time it was a big fat 0, but Ross, anything you want to plug?
Hey, you can follow me at AreYouBadEnough on Twitter, and that's about it.
Brian?
Yeah, Brian_Vora on Twitter. We kind of had a break from the Nintendo Fun Club. But man, I started up Krusty's Funhouse again last night. Whew, it is not enjoyable. It was okay at first, but wow.
Yeah, we got to move on from that to something tolerable.
Yeah, we got to punch it up.
And this is the most confusing thing possible, where you're playing old NES games and you have been for years, but for some reason you're not streaming them.
Couldn't stream them in the 80s, Ben.
It's infuriating. Start streaming it, you idiots.
Old dads that like all play whenever we can, and it sometimes takes us a month or two to get through even the most basic of games, so it would be a frustrating pace, but maybe we can figure something out.
Okay, yeah, please figure something out. But cool, thanks so much for watching or listening to this episode of Max Spoilers. We'll have more in the future, probably like the Mandalorian style, where we'll come back to WandaVision with the grand finale. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. The Deepest Dive is the best, most thorough discussions about games on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. The MinnMax Show podcast airs every Thursday. Patreon supporters vote on what we stream every single week, and a whole lot more. Give us a shot. Try subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we hope we can win you over.